I feel like that was like a SAT. Well, it's a very difficult question. I think I feel like each organization can do. I'm thinking really hard, which is why I feel like each organization can do something different. But I mean, kind of an example is I feel like with Rising Stars and Project Community, a lot of our kids, they participate in both. And I think the shared experiences of going through both, they kind of say, oh, I want to be involved in community, right? Some of them, I think, are involved in their alumni programs, some are involved in ours, and some are involved in both. And I think ultimately it is those experiences that, like I kind of said in my presentation, that they remember. I'm thinking that if it's possible for us to kind of even chat, you know, post PechaKucha Nite, I think ultimately creating those kind of more worldwide or more global experiences with even some of our best and brightest, ooh, my voice cracked, but some of our best and brightest, I think I think it's going to be organic. I don't think that it's possible to create like a very specific pipeline where this person does this program, then does this, and eventually, you know, is involved at the end of the day. I think it's just going to be an organic network of experiences that they remember. And I think it's kind of like tonight we were able to connect with Akira, right? But in the future, that network connection is going to allow us to perhaps expand from there. But it's very organic. I don't think it's going to be a very specific kind of like road or path. I think it's going to be a meandering just collection of experiences that maybe we can create soon, you know. But
Answer again. I agree with him. My answer is a little bit shorter. I think that, as Akira mentioned before, as long as we give a little bit, I think we'll be able to create a bigger effect globally, as he's explained. That's it.
For me, I think it's possible to make steps towards that, but I don't know. I mean, it's a good goal to have. It'll be really interesting to see like a whole worldwide network of people sharing the same like experiences. And we can see now with our like college campuses that even in our organization it's like growing, and the members aren't necessarily just like Japanese American, but it's like multicultural, multi-ethnic. And with that, the network, like we said, is like expanding. I mean, we all share some of the similar events that we do in Little Tokyo, and you saw that in like the slides that we presented. Some of them overlapped, but yeah, it's like, I think, a good starting point doing this stuff where people from different organizations get to come together in like the same place and give a presentation. So
I think anything is possible, really, and it's just like, you know, that poem for Blacklava created the first shirt. I mean, that poem was out there for a long time, and it hit some people and it didn't hit other people, you know. And I think for me, you know, I pretty much, you know, I'm not really connected to my Nikkei roots at all. You know, I just have more of like a general Asian American, like when I'm working on my designs and stuff, it's more like that. But I think like just being involved in, you know, programs like this, I mean, it's kind of like that poem, you know. Now it's going to get me thinking. And if you get enough minds thinking about kind of like the same thing, you know, there's a lot of power in that. So I mean, there might be only like 50 people in this room, but if from this moment we have this seed that you planted, right? So now we have to grow that seed. How are we going to do it? Because this is the easy part, I think. It's getting that seed there, right? And in you know, organizations and ideas, I always see the seed planted everywhere. But what are we going to do to make a commitment? Or it's usually the commitment that's missing. I think that's what I'm trying to say, you know? So not that it's a right or wrong that we should or shouldn't do that, but that's just something to be aware about. So what we can do from this very moment, right, if we have this desire to grow the Nikkei awareness, what are like maybe the specific steps that we can take? And not that it's like you know, it's going to be like this like pipeline you said, because I don't think it'll be like this pipeline that we're going to do this and it'll happen. But we have to start creating steps that are measurable and that we know that we've done. So I guess, you know, yeah.
For me, working on DiscoverNikkei, I mean, we started the project, like, the site launched 5 years ago, and it's only really been like the last year where we've really seen tremendous sort of connection and engagement, where it's gotten to, like, over the last year, we had hardly any, like, Japanese Canadian content. And all of a sudden, we randomly got an email from a writer in Canada saying, I'd like to contribute my stories to DiscoverNikkei. And we didn't know him prior to that, and he's been contributing regularly, but beyond that, he's actually been referring other people to our site to share their stories. So we got this like Nisei grandmother who shared her stories about sort of going through the World War II experience in Canada, which was really great. And then now she asked us whether we'd be interested in her granddaughter's story, because as a 10-year-old, she and her husband took their granddaughter to Japan for the first time. And so she kept like a journal. And so we've been posting like these different parts of her journal, and it's like a 10-year-old Japanese Canadian girl's, perspective of going through Japan, which is, I'm sure, very different from somebody else, And so it's really interesting, but it is that very organic process. It's just, I think networks in general are just very organic in the way. You can't force them to happen. And I think it's whether people can find sort of relevance and meaning and personal meaning and personal connection that they then can go and, and value. For me, a lot of why I started working at the museum and feel so strongly about the work that we do, I was taking art classes and I was doing a painting, and I was doing sort of this collage of like images. There's like images of a girl, famous photograph of a girl with her family tag on her jacket, and she's standing there, and I used that in a painting, and I was painting it, and then there was this older, Caucasian woman in the class, and she's like, oh, that was really sad what happened, but, it was for their own safety. And that was maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, and, she's still believing that. And for me, a lot of what drives me and the passions of working at the museum are stories like that, where it's like our work is nowhere near done, and it's important to know. And there's extreme value in doing that and sharing our stories. And that's, I think, for me, what drives me in working on DiscoverNikkei and getting to meet all these people like Akira, and actually there's this person right here, Jay Horinoichi. I met him today for the first time as well, and he's actually from a Nikkei from California that's currently living in Tokyo, but I met him through Twitter. And it's just, the internet has incredible potential, and I think it's a matter of figuring out ways to tap that and to really get people to get interested in, which is difficult, I think, for people in that 18 to 40 age range, because they don't always naturally have a connection and tie to the culture. So that's my long answer.
I want to thank Mr. Obara for this question, because it's kind of one of the points where I mostly had that difficulty in thinking, how could we make this global network of people to support each other? As you said, the reality of each country is so different. Sometimes the interests of each country is also different. But going to each in some of these places, there's also a lot of similarities. For example, one is that there's so many young people who want to participate in their communities or at different projects, but maybe they're very active when they're young, but when they finish a university or they start forming a family, that is like that's the main part of their life, and it's really hard. It gets harder for a while to keep on participating or in something. And my idea is to kind of have a mainframe or the base of this, like for people who want to participate but don't have the time or the ways to get there, but kind of support that part so they can participate in an easier way. Making an easier example, for example, let's say I live in Chile and I want to meet Obama. Then I don't have any relatives or anybody in Los Angeles, for example. But then I could go to that website and post something like, I need to meet Obama because I want his autograph or for my daughter or any other reason. And maybe Vicky would see this there and say, oh yeah, I know him. And then it would be like a mutual place to meet and find a way to achieve the goals of each individual. It will be, as you said, organic, and it's very hard to make one category of what we want to do. So that's why it's our proposal is to make the websites to meet each other virtually, the conventions, the summits, the retreats, to meet in person and to kind of then connect a little more and have the NIN challenge, a fund, or it will be like a contest of projects to see how people can work together and through that have interesting ideas to do together. And that's just like the desk where you work, and the ideas, it all depends on each and everyone.